Into the world of Marvel came Heavy Hitter, a teenage giant awakened. Most Marvel characters are a hilarious mess at their newfound superpowers, hence the training wheels. But not for Jin or Kid Juggernaut, who bulldozed through every part of the superhero arc, becoming another newly added character to the ranks of Marvel's Kings of Chaos. With gods, mutants, and living legends already competing in one universe, would there be room for another unstoppable force? To that, Marvel shrugged and said, "Let there be chaos." And chaos walked in, a Korean-American teenager bearing unimaginable strength and trauma to match. From humble beginnings to monumental fame, he shares the privilege of becoming more than just another name on the list of Marvel superheroes. He symbolizes a mighty shift, but really, who is he? What is his story? Why should the young child be subjected to one of the most daunting legacies in Marvel history? Let's discover his journey together. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. From Baker to Juggernaut, Jyns Backstory. Before the armor and unstoppable powers, Jin was just another teenager trying to get through the day without crumbling. Jin, a Korean-American high school student living in Queens, carried more than textbooks on his back. Raised by a single mother, his home life had been a ticking time bomb of emotional and physical abuse at the hands of his older brother. But instead of lashing out, Jin chose to bottle it all up. With no place to go, the pain and the rage transformed him from the inside, giving him a legacy of pain and power. He found temporary solace in sketching cityscapes and reading mythology, a habit that foreshadows his later transformation. Jin first appeared in Marvel's Voices Infinity Comic number 100, which highlights underrepresented characters in the Marvel Universe. When his absentee father is killed in Korea in a freak accident, Jin is unable to mourn the death of the man he barely remembers. But with the news and his father's belongings, he receives his legacy, the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak. But he is immediately embroiled in a battle with Malfagor, who wants the gem for himself. This is the first instance where we see Jin's selflessness as he leads Malfagor away from his mother while endangering his own life. Although the battle is resolved by Doctor Strange, who turns out to be Cyttorak in disguise, Jin is left with the choice to accept the gem and the responsibility that comes with it. Though he refuses to be Cyttorak's pawn, he later accepts it due to his mother's encouragement and his father's last letter claiming that the right person would be able to use the stone for good. Jin loves sketching cityscapes and reading mythology, a habit that foreshadows his later transformation. He's also a part-time baker at his mother's bakery. Could this kid be any cuter? In a scene that's heart-wrenching for Jin, he sees his crush Noah kissing a girl, but instead of being angry, he dons his suit and saves them when they're about to be hit by a truck. He is later recruited by Professor Xavier, who's impressed that Jin is using his powers for doing good, into the Avengers Academy. The Crimson Gem's legacy, Jin's sinister inheritance. The Crimson Gem of Cyttorak is not just an embellishment. It has the potential to be a curse, a pathway, or even a trial. Throughout its history, it's consistently selected champions, agents of chaos and power, to realize the legends of its mystical patron. Cain Marko, the Juggernaut's previous incarnation, was full of jealousy and anger when he stumbled onto the gem. In Jin's case, along with great power comes the heavy burden of the reality around him. This psychological weight is closely linked to Cyttorak, the force intertwined with violence, deception, overwhelming emotions, and various forms of excitement. Cyttorak serves as an avatar that emerges through these revelations. Rather than being a distant voice, Cyttorak is a constant presence in Jin's mind, urging him to unleash his fury, cause devastation, and surrender to his darkest, most primal instincts. Besides being an avatar for power, to be a Juggernaut is to wrestle with the very force that made one powerful. For Cain Marko, decades were spent battling with those impulses and rechristening himself outside the armor of his whole identity. Jin begins that process immediately, and for the record, there is no grace period. He is just a kid becoming an heir to a war. Let's start with the story of the Kid Juggernaut, the first big break. Kid Juggernaut's story has nothing to do with that of Cain Marko. While the original Juggernaut's pounding muscles were always viewed as a hire-for-acquire bruiser, Jyn is distinctly different. The first full appearance of the character in his own solo Kid Juggernaut comic sets the tone. This is a story with no vengeance or hatred. This story is about identity, about trauma, about someone who never had power and woke up one day with more power than he ever wished for. In his initial arc, Jyn goes through the rather difficult experience of controlling the destructive abilities given to him by Cyttorak. He's on the run from the heroes, who hunt him for what he might yet become, stalked by the original Juggernaut, who views him as both threat and heir, and forced to confront the very abuses that drove him onto this path. Jyn is off to a quick start as much more than a regular Marvel rookie. He doesn't aspire to be a hero. Instead, he abhors the thought of becoming a monster. He traverses that very thin line in between the very image of what he could become and what he's trying to escape from. In a universe where power breeds corruption, Jyn's tale becomes an investigation into resistance to corruption, resisting darkness within, resisting expectations from others, and resisting temptation from the Crimson Gem. There's another layer of insight into the motivations of Cyttorak. In his flashback dream sequences, Jyn witnesses other avatars succumbing to the gem's influence. These dark, tragic forms are both burning warnings and reflections for Jyn, reminding him that every step along the path he walks to become himself is another step down the road of his own destruction, unless somehow he can find a way to rewrite the score. When he joins the Avengers Academy, he meets the other students such as Aaron, Bloodline, Escapade, and the kid genius, Moon Girl. He willingly joins forces with his comrades against Fritz von Meyer, aka Swarm, and the hive of bees he controls. Together, the team triumphs against Swarm and bee kaijus. During his time fighting with the team, he starts developing feelings for Aaron. He later joins the mission tasked with freeing Red Goblin's younger brother, who had been taken captive by the new Sinister Six. In this fight, he battles their strongest member, Rhinoceros, and manages to turn the tide. In another pivotal mission, he protects the Arnie Roth Community Center, which has an LGBTQIA+ youth center where Aaron and Corey volunteered, from violent bigots. As the fight comes to an end, the readers are gifted with an adorable scene as Marcus Wetherell, a Daily Bugle journalist, kisses him in thanks for saving him from the minions of Cynthia Schmidt. Talk about a teenage heartthrob. Juggernaut Reloaded, powers, personality, and the gear that makes him unstoppable. Power level, off the charts, and still climbing. Let it be established, Jin Jun-sung is a powerhouse, and we're not talking about the punch-through-a-tank kind of powerhouse. We're talking about the city block implodes on accident kind of powerhouse. Infused with the power of the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, Jin's strength is not only arguably equal to that of Cain Marko's, but actually possesses the potential to extend beyond his very limits. If Cain's power is steady, reliable, and consistent with that of an earthquake, Jin's powers, under certain conditions, can morph and change into a series of explosions or a sudden volcanic eruption. The angrier or emotionally charged he gets, the more scarily stronger he becomes. He can toss cars around like basketballs, crash through vibranium-reinforced walls, and stomp hard enough to create a shockwave. Then there's the absolutely ludicrous stamina. Jin takes a full power optic blast from Cyclops at very close range and hardly breaks a sweat. Bullets? Pfft. High caliber energy beams? They're kisses at best. Anything else, such as blunt force trauma, totally ignores that, unless it was a hit by a celestial powerhouse. But this is where it gets rather confusing. Jin's strength isn't an absolute. It lacks a rather clear semblance of predictability. Whereas Cain's Juggernaut form, once activated, is relatively stable, Jin, however, cannot claim the same for his strength since it's utterly hinged upon his emotional state. Angry, scared, consumed by guilt, power surge. Calm? Still stronger than 90% of those in the Marvel Universe, but not anywhere near working at full capacity. Therefore, this emotional aspect makes him powerful in a unique and dangerously unpredictable sense. In the defining panel of the comic book, Jin is portrayed lifting a collapsing building while simultaneously shielding innocent bystanders, shedding tears in the process. That's more than pure muscle action. That is trauma in action. And this enforces, big time, the idea that Cyttorak did not just choose someone powerful, it chose someone full of emotion, conflict, and promise for massive devastation. Suit against the storm. Jyn's armor is not just about looks. It's a living representation of everything that's raging inside him. Its main design inspiration is a Juggernaut, with red and bronze aesthetics that seem to pay homage to Cain Marko. However, the medieval feel attached to Cain's armor more or less does not fit Jyn's suit, which is much more biomechanical, streamlined, layered, and laced with glowing crimson seams pulsing through it like veins. It's always active, changing with Jyn and reacting to his total rage. The helmet bears a strong resemblance to the Juggernaut look and has been redesigned with jagged edges and claw-like contours, giving the impression of a broken crown. This signifies that Jyn has not only a fractured identity, but is also weighed down by the legacy he never asked for. A helmet, once put on, protects the wearer, and, secondly, isolates them. While worn, it dulls some of the most irritating, dangerous whispers that come from Cyttorak, almost acting as an emotional pair of earplugs for him. Take it off, cue the music. Fans have theorized about the semi-sentient nature of the armor, suggesting that the Crimson Gem, or some magical mechanism, taps into Jyn's subconscious. There are instances where the armor instinctively creates protective shields out of panic, or unleashes a spiked tendril when it senses danger, reinforcing the belief that the armor functions as an external expression of his psyche rather than merely a suit of protection. Perhaps one of the most unnerving things about it is that as Jyn's rage reaches the very apex, the blood-red lines shine more intensely, glowing like streams of lava, while the land around him begins to shatter as if Cyttorak were trying to claw his way through. Personality, angry and trying to heal. What really sums up Jyn is not just raw power, but the tight emotional rope he walks every day. Underneath the armor, the muscles, and the legend, one will still find a child inside, a scared little kid with a quiet interior who carried problems on his back before the concept of healing was ever implanted into his head. Jyn viciously functions through his inner monologues in the comic, with him always asking if he really deserves the power that he wields or not, or if he's not just one bad day away from becoming the monster that everyone seems to fear. A good man seeks no applause for his heroism, but he doesn't wish to be seen as a villain either. Jyn is mostly detached, mumbling about being all brooding because he needs the edge, or perhaps to look all the cooler. Jyn is usually especially aloof and defensive with almost all characters, especially those trying to help him. There are usually moments of power surges in his stories, such as his chuckling at a joke, fond memories of his mother, or bonding with fellow trauma survivors. Jyn can be said to sympathize with victims, especially children who are bullied and abused. In one story, he interrupts the beating of a boy in his school not by attacking the bullies, but by standing in front of them and taking the punches for the boy, saying, "I've had worse," and you believe him. Weaknesses, emotional volatility, and Cyttorak's influence. More dangerous than Jyn's fist is his mind. His real weakness is the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which is evil and parasitic enough to feed upon unresolved childhood trauma and relish it. Not a generous force, Cyttorak talks into Jyn's ear, encouraging his rage, even tantalizing him with liberation. Cyttorak would assure Jyn complete liberation from the psychic prison of pain, fear, and guilt if he would just stop caring and let the storm out, he whispers in his weakest moments. Tempting but terrifying, Jyn has admitted more than once that he's unsure how long he can keep resisting it. Some comic clues have sown the seed that Cyttorak might, one day, take Jyn completely, in body and soul, unless he finds some anchor in himself. Whether it be friends, mentors, or growth is still unclear. But time is, indeed, running out. The purportedly impressive armor has its limits, and at times it appears to fracture, not due to external assaults, but because Jyn shatters from within. When the boy collapses, the armor falls apart as well. Marvelous verdict, the rise of a new kind of Juggernaut. Kid Juggernaut is more than a power fantasy. He symbolizes the intersection of power, trauma, and identity, often overlooked in Marvel's narratives. Jin Jun-sung imbues heart into the helmet, tragedy into the Titan, offering fans a hero who doesn't want a cape, doesn't say all the right things, and doesn't always win, but persists. An unstoppable force cannot be at rest. Healing is his truer path, one the world prefers for him, whether as a victim or a villain. If Marvel continues this direction, Kid Juggernaut could become a pivotal figure of this new era, not for his ability to break walls, but for his journey to dismantle the barriers within. And frankly, in this age of global catastrophe, we're all right there with him. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.